when I took that oath, they said to me, if your mother is sick and dying and you're at her bedside, we call you to service. You leave your mother, you come and serve the family. We're number one in your life before anything and everything. So when you take that oath, it's really a bad thing. You're actually dissing your family. And at the end of the day, when I realized what the life was really all about, that's when I made the decision to walk away. And, when I had some issues with my dad later on, I realized that my dad absolutely put that life first. He absolutely did. As a result, my family was destroyed.
Hi, this is Chazz Palminteri.
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
The Wise Guy. So, Michael, another show here.
Yeah, we're back, and it's holiday season. Thanksgiving is over, and now we're in the home stretch to the end of the year, Chaz. It's been a good one.
It's been a great year. Today I want to talk about that question that I always get. I mean, I've been around these mob guys my whole life, and even I don't know the answers to a lot of these things. But I said, you know what? If anybody knows the answer, you do. I mean, I know the answer to a few of them, but could I say 100%? Not really. I figured that we would talk about what are the top 5 myths about the Mafia. Here's one. Let me give you one. This one has always bothered me. For years, I grew up when I was young, and maybe it was that way when I was young. But to get made, to get a button, you had to kill somebody. Is that true or not true?
Well, let's put it this way. There is truth to that, but it's the order in which it might happen, meaning this. When the books were opened, they had an expression that the books were closed from the 50s to the mid-70s. Now, they weren't, meaning they weren't making any new guys. The only way they can make another guy was if somebody died in a family and they were able to replace them. And that was a commission ruling. All 5 families agreed. However, when they opened up the books, a lot of guys came in and they didn't just go around killing people. You can't, you got to get made, we got to kill people. They were building up the ranks, so to speak. There was guys that came in, but, the bottom line is that if you got an order at some point in time during that life to do that, then you had to do it. Didn't necessarily have to do it before you were made, but at some point in time, if you were given that order, you had to do it. So the understanding is if you're given the order, you got to do it.
What happens if a guy just can't do it? What happens then?
Well, he'll be in trouble. If he's given an order and he, for whatever reason, doesn't do it, can't do it, doesn't have the heart for it, he's in trouble. That better happen before you get made, because if it happens after you get made, you're in real trouble.
So you might get whacked for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
like
anything else, Chaz. You're given an order. If you don't carry it out, no matter what it is, you're in trouble. And that's a serious order not to carry out.
A couple of questions. Who was the one who closed the books in the 50s?
It was a decision from all 5 families, the way I understand. I don't know who initially brought it up. I would think, and this is just speculation, Carlo Gambino carried a lot of weight during that time. And I think, he might have been the one that suggested it, and then all the families went along for whatever reason, because they had pretty good buildup at that time. I mean, the Gambino family had about 250 made guys. Genovese's had about 250, somewhere about that, at least over 200. Colombo's and Lucchese's and Bonanno's was smaller. We had 100 plus in each one of those families. But they were satisfied in keeping it that way. They didn't say, well, wait, we got to build up the ranks. So,
and who was the one who opened the books?
Again, it was a decision that everybody came to at that time. I think they said, okay, it's time to bring some new blood in.
Wow.
When I got straightened out, there were guys waiting 20 years. I could share this with you. There was even some resentment that I got put up first. I mean, I was the first batch that got made, and people saying, well, you jumped ahead of everybody. And I said, hey, my father is doing 50 years for a crime he didn't commit. He needed me in that life. They at least gave him that courtesy. So I still had to do what I had to do to prove myself. But if they wanted to extend my dad that courtesy, don't get mad at me. Go discuss it with whoever you got to discuss it with.
Now, Michael, again, on that first myth, was it the same way you think in Sicily, that you had to whack somebody to get made, or no?
Yes. Yeah, I believe that. I believe it was more stringent in Sicily. That you had to do that. I believe, and again, I believe you had to do that first in Italy.
Before they even make you?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so, because I did a movie there in the 90s, and it was about that whole crew, Totorina and all those guys, and they were bad guys, man. I mean, Like but here, we would never kill a cop, a district attorney. They were killing judges, district attorneys, cops. They killed the president of the army. They killed anybody.
No, they killed anybody. That was a big difference between them and us over here. It was hands off of that. You weren't allowed to do it. And again, that was a commission-wide decision. They said it would bring too much heat, and it was hands off. They just did what was it? Netflix did this new thing now. It's on now. How to become a mob boss, and they did a whole episode on Tatarina. I didn't watch it. Yeah,
yeah. They finally found him. He was in his own town. They couldn't believe it. Yeah, years. Way in the right on the open. They found him. Who's going to turn him in?
Exactly. That would never happen here. In here, you get found right away. Over there, no.
Wow. When the government offered like millions of dollars rewards for guys like that, did people bite at stuff like that? Did they give them up for a lot of money?
I'm sure they did. I mean, Ali Boy Persico, he was on a run for 18 years and he got caught. And I don't know the exact circumstances. I don't want to, but the story was that there was money paid for him. And the guy that I think eventually gave him up became an informant. So I'm sure he got taken care of.
All right, let's go to another. Here's another one that we talked about. I love this one because I always thought this to be true. When you go to prison, the family supports your family.
That's probably the biggest myth and gets the best laugh out of me because that's absolutely not true. Look, and I have personal experience with this. When my dad went to prison in 1970, little Joey Brancato, who was his, made guy, his right-hand man at the time, he handled my father's business on the street. My father had some bookmaking thing. He had some Shylock money on the street. He had a dry cleaning place that he had a piece of. And he had money for maybe two and a half years. After that, done. It was his own money that was being collected for him and nothing else. And at that point in time, it was done. Nobody took care of him. Nobody gave us $1, nothing.
So you're on your own.
You're on your own, Chazz. One of the reasons, and nobody paid for my dad's trials or anything else either. You have to foot your own bill. And one of the reasons that I got involved in the life was not only to help my dad get out of jail, but I had to support my family. My mother wasn't working at the time. I had 3 younger brothers and sisters. I had no money, I was a kid. And so I had to get out on the street and earn some money, earn it the best I could. That's the biggest myth. And that's across the board. So many guys get in trouble. They go to jail. You fend for yourself. That's it.
Michael, I got to be honest with you. You get made. They say you got to do this before your family, God, no matter what, you got to answer to them first. But meanwhile, they don't return the same loyalty. They don't give you the same loyalty that they want from you.
You know what, Chazz? I can honestly say this now. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about any of the guys because I did it too. You got to be out of your mind in a way because, I described it in one way. When you get married, you take an oath to your wife to protect, defend, support, love, and that extends to your family, your children. When I took that oath, they said to me, if your mother is sick and dying and you're at her bedside, we call you to service, you leave your mother, you come and serve the family. We're number one in your life before anything and everything. So when you take that oath, it's really a bad thing. You're actually dissing your family. And at the end of the day, when I realized what the life was really all about, that's when I made the decision to walk away. And, when I had some issues with my dad later on, I realized that my dad absolutely put that life first. He absolutely did. As a result, my family was destroyed. It was totally destroyed. And, again, Chazz, what some people don't know, after my dad's second and third parole violations, my brother's drug addict, my mother and him are growing way apart. She's struggling. My sister's dying. I said, Dad, you got to get out of New York. You can't stay here. You keep getting violated for association. If you want this family to exist, you got to leave. And he wouldn't do it. And as a result, he kept going back to prison. So I understood. His heart was, I made an oath and I'm not going to violate it. And he stood by that principle. But on the other hand, you look at what happened with the family. We all have to be nuts to agree to something like that.
Was there ever a contract out on you, Michael?
From what I understand, look, the feds told me 100% there was, that Persico put a contract on me. The feds told me that my father went along with it. listen, I always say this. I know Junior was very upset with me when I walked away, very upset. He took it very personal because, look, I was giving him a lot of money, let's face it. But he took it very personal. And my father, I can honestly say this. Would he have put a gun to my head? I don't believe that. But would he have kept quiet? Said, hey, my son violated his oath? Until this moment, I can't say that he wouldn't have done that. He might have just let it go. I don't know. I hate to think that way. He might have.
Did your dad ever had a contract on him? Does anybody ever put a contract on your father?
Not that I know of, no. Anybody can say what they wanted to say, Chaz. They wanted my dad to rot in prison. They were hoping he never got home. Nobody was looking out for him. Nobody gave a damn for him. Nobody cared about it. Because he had standard in that life. He had stature, I should say, in that life. And nobody was in a hurry. Junior wasn't in a hurry. I heard later on that my father and Junior really had gotten into it, that there was a lot of friction between them. And I don't know how true it was. My dad sometimes didn't talk the best about Junior with me. And look, Junior broke my dad. I don't know if you know this. When my father was a captain, I was his acting captain. Junior elevated me to captain and broke my father, made my father a soldier. And I said, what the heck? And he said, well, your father keeps getting violated. I'm protecting him. I don't want him around anybody. So we had that excuse, even though it wasn't a good one. And my father didn't take that well. I can tell you that.
It's just fascinating to me that, you see The Godfather and you watch these movies and then you hear these stories. Is there honor in the wise guys? Is there any kind of is there any kind of fucking, that's why, people got mad at me once when I was talking about the life. And again, I was never in the life, not even close, but I've seen they give up each other, they kill each other. They have these laws. You can't fuck around with another man's wife. Can't fuck around with another man's daughter. And I've seen things where they do that, where they do it. So not often, but what the fuck is real? What is real? What is not real? Was the old school mob more dedicated to the rules than the new school mob was?
I think it's an individual thing. Remember, you're taking guys, so many of them were criminals since, a guy like Sammy, and I'm not saying anything out of school, he'll tell you, all I ever wanted to be was in that life. I wanted to be a gangster. So from the time they're kids, they're in gangs and they're doing things like that. So do they grow up with an honorable feeling in their life? Do they grow up as honest people? You're giving people a lot of credit. Okay, now I take the oath. Now I become the most honorable guy around. I have integrity in this life. I'm going to do all the right things. You're not even brought up to think that way. So now you take the oath and out of fear, you don't want to make a mistake because you could pay for it with your life. But there's a lot of backstabbing, a lot of treachery in that life. It's power and money, Chaz. That's really what it is. And look, I've seen guys, I had a good friend of mine. I don't know if I ever told you this. He got himself, he was around my dad, Big Tony Orgello, soldier in that life, stand-up guy. He tells me at a funeral that he's going to get jammed up in a drug case. And I said to him, Tony, we're not supposed to be messing with drugs. What the hell's the matter with you? I made a mistake. I was an undercover agent, and the boss's son was involved with me. So he said, Michael, you know that they're going to throw all the blame on me. They're going to let this kid go. They're going to throw the blame on me.
Sure.
I said, Tony, don't worry about it. I'll straighten it out. I was a captain at the time. Chaz, the truth. I get on a plane. I go to Florida. I get off the plane. I get a call. Michael, Tony went into a phone booth and blew his brains out. He was so afraid that he was going to get walked into a room and not walk out again. And he said, I'll never go out that way. Here's a guy that was loyal his entire life. He was a good guy, stand-up guy. This is the fear that he had. So fear in that life kept you in line most of the time.
You think you could have saved them?
I think I could have. Again, it's all depends the politics involved. Now, if they were going to say it was Tony that led the kid into this, who knows? Because we weren't allowed to deal with drugs at that time. If you dealt with drugs, it was an excuse to kill you or to put you on a shelf or whatever. And he knew that. So he said in his mind, what shot do I have? They're going to blame me for everything. They're not going to hurt the boss's son. So I'm not going to go out that way. It was very sad. It was one of the most horrible things that I experienced in that life because I really loved the guy. I know him since I was a kid.
So you just got back on a plane and came home?
Yeah. I took care of some business, then came back. Yeah, it was sad.
Let's go to another one here. Here's a good one. Mob guys have a plan when they target businesses or to defraud or infiltrate. or the takeover thing, do they?
You know, that's the biggest fallacy. They think that we sit in our social clubs and we say, okay, we're going to go after this company, we're going to go after that company. Most of the time, Chazz, in my situation, almost every time, somebody from the inside would come to us with a scheme to defraud their company. I had people come from GE Credit at the time, General Electric Credit. They came with a big scam to defraud their company. They figure I could finance them, I could protect them, I'm not going to tell on them, we'll make money together. I had the same with General Motors Corporation. I had the same in the gas business. That's how I got involved. Guy came to me with a scheme, a germ of an idea, and we were able to expand it into something big. But he was, up until that point, allegedly a legitimate guy. That's how it happens most of the time. And then you can either capitalize it if you have a little, sense and know how to do things, or you don't. But no, we didn't sit in our social club and say, all right, we're going to go after this, that, and that. The unions were a different story. Unions were tailor-made for the mob. Tailor-made. There's no question about it because of who the membership was and everything else. It was tailor-made for us. But
Right.
everything else, so many guys are shady, and they came to us.
I got a question for you, Michael. Excuse me. This is another myth that I hear. I heard two different answers on this. A guy owned a strip club, a few of them. And strip clubs make a lot of money. And the wise guys, they went there to lean on the guy. And the guy happened to be, his brother-in-law was a big DA, the guy's brother-in-law. And the guy was not afraid at all. He said, fuck you, I'm not giving you anything. And if you come to me, I'm going to my brother-in-law. And he said the guy's name, and he was a known guy. And they backed off and they left him alone. So it's basically, you're better off doing that than being the guy that knows nobody, because you're going to get whacked. But how do they deal with that when a guy whose brother-in-law is the big DA, what do you guys say to yourselves? It's not worth it? Fuck it?
Well, if that were me, I would say, what do we need the headache for? There's other places around. I would have backed off of that because that's trouble. There's no doubt. And the bottom line is the smart guys in that life want to try to do things that bring the least heat on you. If you're dealing with a brother or a relative of a district attorney that has some juice, if it were me, I'd back off. Now, the next guy could say, hey, I'm going to burn your place down. And is something good going to come out of it? You're not going to shake a guy down like that, and he's not going to go and tell on you. And then you got a headache. So why would you bother? You got to use your
better off just backing off.
Back off. I mean, everything in that life isn't won by force. Sometimes you apply that method and it's going to hit you back in the face. And the problem is now, too many guys don't realize that. They just had a big bust a couple of months ago with, 10 guys. Same thing, extortion, I'm threatening you over the phone. It's just the most stupid thing you can do, Chazz. I'm telling you. So many of these guys got jammed up with the same silly method of operation.
Now, another myth. I wrote another one down here for... We all saw Goodfellas. Was there ever a time when they really did, the wise guys went to jail where they got lobster and beer and they made themselves steaks and they had their own suite? Was that true or not?
In the federal system, absolutely not. Never happened. Never true.
Never.
Never. Not even close. Did we eat a little better because, even going back in time? Yeah, if you had Italian guys in the kitchen or people that you might have gotten a little better food and so on and so forth. But never is set up like in Goodfellas. In the state, you had a little more leniency, but never to that extent that you were getting stuff like that. Now,
yeah,
I would
say, finally.
Never. And don't believe it. And there's nobody around now that could say it happened. And I never heard of anything like that. And I know 1,000 guys that went to jail in the state and everything else. Never.
And I'll even go as far as to say this. Even bosses that you never even worked for. Who did you say, out of all the bosses, was the most ruthless and feared person? You think?
The most ruthless and feared? Gigante was feared. He had an iron hold over New York. He sent for me one time, Chazz, through Fritzy Giovanelli, who was a good friend. He was a bookmaker in Queens, good friend.
Right.
And I'm walking up and down. I had never met him. I'm walking down Houston Street with him, right? And he's got the beard, the hair all messed up. Bathrobe, and we're talking. And it was at that time when he had heard that I was having a little trouble with Junior over the gas business. They would put me on the spot, right? And he looked at me and he said, I'm making you an offer. If you have any trouble with that guy, he said, you come here and be a captain with me. I'll take care of it. 100%. And he meant it. And I knew he could have made it happen. I said, no, Chin, I'm fine, no problem, because I figure, you can't jump ship like that. Everybody would look at me like, I don't know. But I didn't want that headache. But he had no qualms whatsoever that it could
He
have
could
been.
have, like, he knew he could have made it happen.
100%. And then I seen him one more time after that. We walked twice. He had a lot of respect for my dad. And he told me the same thing. He said, remember what I told you? You don't have any trouble if you come right here. You're captain of my family.
Now, Michael, I know you're not a doctor, but in your assessment, was he crazy or was he not crazy?
Well, my classic answer to that, he was crazy as a fox. But to
Right.
play crazy for all of those years, you got to be a little bit crazy and
You
get
gotta be a
away.
little crazy.
Yeah, and get away with it. But no, he was very sharp, Chin.
I heard that he was so feared by everybody. He had an iron fist that when the Chin sends for you, it's, I better go.
Absolutely. He controlled New York in a big way.
Now, who was the man under the Chin? Who was his underboss?
Tony Salerno, Fat Tony. People say, well, he was a make-believe boss. He wasn't a make-believe boss because most of the stuff went to him because Chin didn't want to get involved. He's trying to stay out. But if there was any important decisions that had to be made, it was all Chin.
Now, I know because I know guys that knew Chin real well, that he would never talk on the phone, ever, never. And most of the time he would whisper to somebody. And that's why they never caught him, and it bothered the shit out of them.
He didn't care who you were. If he didn't want to talk to you, you could have been the president of the United States. He didn't care.
Really?
You're not getting close to him, no.
Wow.
And that's why he lasted 30 years like that.
30 years.
Yeah. And if the stupid RICO stuff never came down, he would have died at home.
Wow. Well, Michael, this has been a great, the myths and the truth, either fact or fiction with the mob. And I think we settled a lot of things here right now.
Yeah, people, they like to know the real story because there's so much stuff that's going around between movies and everything else, and people don't know what's true or not. But hey, listen, we like to be encouraging on this channel, and we like to entertain people. But every once in a while, you give them a little dose of the mob stuff. They like that.
Yeah, but a little. If we're going to talk about the mob stuff, let's talk about it in reality. Wow, now we, people got the answer out there. That's from the horse's mouth. That's yours, So, well, we hope you had a great time, folks. This is The Wise and the Wise Guy. Oh, we got to remind people, if they want to get our merchandise, Michael, we got the links on your site and my site, ChazzPalminteri.net and Michael Franzese. And we got some great merchandise, The Wise and the Wise Guy. Check the link, folks, out. Some really fantastic stuff. And all I got to say is this is Chazz Palminteri.
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
The Wise Guy.
And we will see you again very soon. And yeah, check out that merchandise. We got some really cool stuff there. I know you're going to like it. It's Christmas time. No better time to order it, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
All right, Michael. God bless.
Take care, buddy.